News Radio 1000 KTOK. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. Well, it's been a few weeks since we have had the opportunity to catch up with the Director of Strategic Communications, Randy Carter, who is with Pike off OTA, No More Turnpikes, and he's going to give us an update this evening on the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority and Department of Transportation. I'll say, let's see, what do we call it, a fight? What do you call it, Randy?
Well, I don't like them. I've never been a fighter. I don't like that word particularly, but let's just say we're in opposition to their current plans to build 3 new turnpikes through Cleveland County. And I'm certainly not opposed to the work on the Turner Turnpike that they're planning on doing, and which is kind of a little bit, I think, of the crux that this recent bond issuance is involved with. But we just don't believe that these 3 routes are necessary, and they're not really something that needs to be done right through the middle of Cleveland County.
And through the watershed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And that's what kind of brings up one of the issues that we're concerned about. They went before the Council on Bond Oversight. Excuse me. Pardon me. The Council on Bond Oversight to get the bonds approved, and one of the routes, the southern extension specifically, and part of the east-west connector, the Bureau of Reclamation denied them the right to build turnpikes across their fee title land. That's the land they own that surrounds Lake Thunderbird, and the Federal Bureau of Reclamation does own Lake Thunderbird. It's not owned by the state. It's not that's the entity that owns it, and it's managed by the Central Oklahoma Master Conservancy District on behalf of the Bureau of Reclamation. That's a local board that actually has offices and manages the facilities out at Lake Thunderbird. They manage the water, I don't guess production is the right word, but the water delivery and water quality that goes to Midwest City, Del City, and to Norman. So they have control over that. But like I said, the Turnpike Authority has been denied access for that route. So they have not announced any movement or that they've reapplied to the Bureau of Reclamation. So basically it's up in the air and it hasn't been decided yet. The Council on Bond Oversight approved the sale of bonds. So again, if there's no route that's there, how can they have done the studies that are necessary, the traffic and revenue studies on a route that doesn't exist? And those traffic and revenue studies need to be done in order to justify the sale of the bonds. So, to me,
but they still gave them what, $500 million? They allowed them to sell $500 million in bonds, correct?
That's correct. Yes, that is correct.
Well, I saw something very interesting from Senator Mary Boren, a Democrat from Norman, and I'm quoting her from the Norman transcript interview. And she said she wasn't surprised the bond council gave their conditional approval. And this is a direct quote. They have to keep moving things forward because their actual model requires them to constantly have to make payments because the revenues coming in are not sufficient to make the bond payment. I'm not surprised that they have to keep pushing forward on that. The bond approval has 7 conditions, and their bond request was significantly less than what they ultimately needed. So how do you interpret that?
Well, she's just saying that what we've been saying all along is that the current revenues that the turnpikes, the 11 turnpikes generate, don't make enough money to take care of the maintenance and pay off the bond indebtedness. So therefore, they're creating new routes with the idea that will bring in more total revenue in order to generate new bonds, but use those bonds to pay off the bonds they can't pay off now. They're just kicking the can down the road, in my estimation. That's exactly what's going on.
The Kickapoo Turnpike, to my knowledge, still is not bringing in the revenue that they thought it should or would.
Oh, no, it's tremendously less. And interestingly enough, the traffic and revenue study that was delivered to the Turnpike Authority concerning the Kickapoo was not even delivered to the Turnpike Authority until after the bonds had already been approved. And I believe that is a major violation of the trust agreement that the Turnpike Authority is supposed to operate under.
So who's running that show?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Well, I think I do know what's going on. And, the trust agreement is a significantly large document. I believe it's, thousands of pages. So it would be hard for anybody to know exactly what is in there, but that doesn't preclude them from following the law and living up to the obligations that they are under to follow the trust agreement.
And yet, if I were to clumsily translate this, it seems like someone is trying to say, well, they're really too big to fail. We have to shore them up because we have to have roads.
Well, yes. But if the Turnpike Authority, in fact, one of the very well educated and experienced people that know accounting and bonds and public finance and all that sort of thing, projected it was conceivable that the Turnpike Authority could be financially insolvent before the end of the year 2023, and that's one of the reasons also that we feel like that they're pushing so hard to get these bonds sold, which they did. In order to keep from going under, and what happens, and of course, and they've been saying lately that the state of Oklahoma is under no obligation to pay off these bonds. What would happen, as I understand it, is if the bonds do not get paid off, then they would indeed become the property of the bondholders. Companies like BlackRock and all these big financial firms own a lot of these bonds, and it would become under the operation of a committee of the bondholders. So, and of course, if they're not making the money to pay the toll or to pay the bonds, then those bondholders would likely jack the tolls way up. And of course, there's the law of supply and demand. If they raise the prices too much on the toll road, then people aren't going to use it. But if they don't raise it high enough, then they don't get the bonds paid off.
And they did raise the tolls, didn't they?
Oh yeah, and they've projected. We've seen figures from not Freedom from Open Records requests that they're planning to raise the tolls. The last thing that we saw, they're planning to raise the tolls at least 6% every other year, and they had just done. Don't quote me on the exact number and the exact time, but I believe it's about a 10% increase in either late 22 or early 23. I'm not positive about that, but it's a pretty significant increase. And I remember there was quite a bit of bellyaching publicly about it when that happened.
Well, and plate pay was supposed to bring in so much more revenue because they could get rid of the people at the gates making change and all that. And then the story came out, they can't read tags that were granted by the Indian nations. They can't read tags if you're pulling a trailer, or they can't read tags if you're, have a paper tag. And so if you don't want to pay tolls, just get you a paper tag.
Right. Well, I mean, technically, somebody should be pulled over for a paper tag that's expired.
That's expired. Yes. But have you ever been able to read any of those paper tags? They're usually in pencil. But anyway, talking of Randy Carter, hold on, Randy, because I need to take a commercial break. Randy Carter is the Director of Strategic Communications for Pike Off OTA. There is also a Facebook page, No More Turnpikes, and we'll find out more when we come back. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. You're listening to 1000 KTOK. We're talking about the Turnpike program, Access Oklahoma. It is a current plan to expand turnpikes across the state of Oklahoma, 3 of which will be in Cleveland County. Now, Cleveland County goes by Lake Thunderbird. It goes through Norman. And to quote Representative Jacob Rosenkrantz, a Democrat from Norman, from the Norman transcript, he said, once the bonds are sold, there's really no way to stop this, and it's never been done. Does that mean people are going to stop fighting? No, it doesn't. They're very dug in. I don't know exactly the next steps, but I've never seen anything unite Norman more than this turnpike has. When the access plan was announced, he saw people unite and push back against this, and that was a time when Norman was not unified in any way, shape, or form. So it is powerful and it is interesting. Randy Carter is the Director of Strategic Communications of that very group called Pike Off OTA, or the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation. So, Randy, I kind of teased that there is an audit on the horizon that maybe will shed some light on this.
Yes, indeed. Back in the spring, I believe it was in March. I'm not positive. I don't remember the exact date, but last spring, Attorney General Getner Drummond called for an investigative audit of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. Interestingly enough, there has never, in the 70-year plus history of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, there's never been an outside audit done by the state auditor or anybody else on behalf of the citizens of the state. They do have an in-house audit that sometimes they do when they will hire an accounting firm to do the audit, but when you anyway, they're the ones that hire them. They pay them to do the audit. So well, you can make your own conclusion on how that might work. But yes, we think that there's a lot of things that may come out based on this audit that could lead to some findings that could cause some things maybe to change with the Turnpike Authority and how they go about doing business. Again, we don't know. Frankly, I thought the Supreme Court was going to rule in our favor and was surprised greatly at the way their ruling turned out. I wasn't as disappointed in the fact that they denied our petition, but I was appalled at the way the conclusion was reached by the judges that voted against us. Now, there were 3 justices that were in dissent of that opinion, and really their arguments were quite succinct and on the money, as opposed to the majority opinion, in my opinion. So,
yes,
anyway,
I think they were focused on the money. It seems very capricious the way they drew the path of these turnpikes with no environmental study, no anything. They just drew lines and then bought a few properties of special people and then go, oh, it's going to uproot 600 families. Oh, too bad. I don't understand it myself.
No, well, and I think too that there's a lot of influence. There's a lot of influence from developers who, in my opinion, they would like to have this turnpike route as far east of the city of the main city of Norman, as close as it can be to the lake, in order to try to influence the city council to change their zoning requirements to allow high density development in those areas. In fact, I was told at one point by somebody in the know very early on in the process, if this route was not going to happen, the southern extension especially was not going to happen exactly the way it was drawn when it first came out, that they would move it further east of 84th Street, and it would go over a whole bunch of the lake. That was before I don't think they even realized that they needed to go before the Council on Bond, before the Bureau of Reclamation to ask for permission to go across the federal land surrounding Lake Thunderbird. So it seems to me that they probably weren't very well prepared in what that route entailed in the first place. They just made a capricious announcement, and then, we didn't know we had to do that part.
So what is your plan? I mean, if Representative Rosencrantz says they've sold the bonds, what can you do?
Well, there's a number of things that can be done, and I don't necessarily want to go specifically into some of those things that we're working on, but in order to go across even the easements of Lake Thunderbird, it looks to me like they will have to do the major environmental studies, and those take up to 2 years. I think they take at least 2 years to complete. And then based on those findings, they may not even, those studies may show that it doesn't make sense to go across those lands for the reasons that the lake would be further impaired as a result of that construction and then ongoing traffic as well. We're looking at some other things. Well, one of the things that we've had a problem with, especially with this recent Council on Bond Oversight ruling, and then the conditions that they put out, and it's involved not just this, but a lot of the other information. Oklahoma has what's called, I believe it's the Open Records Act, which means that we can put in a records request to get information from any state agency about the things that they do, how they do business, and the proceedings that they take, and all this business. Well, we've had some of those requests in for information with the Turnpike Authority for well over a year. We've gotten some things, and of course you might remember one that we got that was especially damning to the Turnpike Authority, and that they had bought all those domain names to try to squelch opposition to the access program. That was a big deal a few months ago, but we don't even know. One of the things that the Turnpike Authority was required by their own trust agreement to do was to have a complete traffic and revenue study done before the bonds were issued. We have requested that study numerous times, and nothing has happened. We've gotten crickets. So the Turnpike Authority either doesn't have it done, or they're afraid to release it to us because of what it might show. And interestingly enough, when the traffic and revenue study was revealed on the Kickapoo Turnpike, it showed a savings of driving time of about a minute or two. It would improve drive times by a minute or two. So just spend millions, maybe billions of dollars on a project that'll save people a minute or two in traffic. It seems a little bit absurd to me.
Well, all I know is what I read in the sources that are out there, just like the general public. And it seems to me they're trying to placate you all by saying, well, we're not going to do anything for 7 or 8 years. Are they hoping that you all are going to sell your homes and move, or so what?
Or I'll be dead by.
I didn't want to say that part.
I know that was.
Since I'm your age, I don't want to say that part. That's right.
I know, Gwin. We are in the same high school graduating year. I'm well aware of that. So yes, it is.
But do you think that's like a poker move? Oh, don't worry, we're not even going to think about it for 7 or 8 years. Well, of course not, because they're insolvent now. I don't have no proof of that, but it appears that way, and I'll be interested to see when they come clean with all of their transparency.
Well, hopefully that'll come out. A lot of that'll come out with the investigative audit. What I found, what one of our investigators or researchers found, and was quite interesting, that shortly after the request for the investigative audit came out, the line item on their agenda or their budget or payment register was a gigantic increase in the payment for document shredding.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, wonders never cease. Well, I wish you all the best, and I hope that you will keep us up to date with this. And as things reveal themselves, please feel free to report back. Will you do that?
Will do, Gwin. Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to share this stuff with all your listeners, and hopefully if they want more information, they can go to pikeoffota.com. And if they are willing and supportive of our cause, we certainly would appreciate any contributions and donations to help towards our legal fees and other expenses in battling this situation.
Yes, you all are citizens that live in Cleveland County. They've just picked on the wrong ones. That's what I think. Thank you so much, Randy. Best of luck.